This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 111, where we're giving you our spoiler-filled recap of Marvel's Luke Cage Season 1.
You think I'm holding back? You think I'm holding back? I'm out to save you.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 111, where we're giving you our spoiler-filled recap of Marvel's Luke Cage Season 1. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, and I'm your third and final host, John. Welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Yes.
Fellow Defenders.
Welcome. So, hopefully, if you're joining us for the first time, you've got 110 other episodes to catch up on, so get going. Our fellow Defenders asked for this, and we are happy to oblige. These are our pre-Defenders recaps of everything Marvel Netflix shows prior to the Defenders. Basically, we're going through each of the characters and their season arcs, and basically giving you a quick taste of what we thought of Season 1, a quick recap, or Season 1 or 2, the case of Daredevil, which you just heard previously 2 episodes ago. But it's basically where our characters are. Where are they at the end of their season coming into the Defenders, which all launches on August 18th, 2017.
Yes, worldwide. Still trying to work out whether it's 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. that we get them over here, but it doesn't matter. Worldwide, at the same time, midnight, San Francisco time, I believe. Yeah, looking forward to getting to the Defenders in a couple of weeks' time. Going to be really good fun to finally get that show. We've been obviously podcasting about these shows for 2.5 years now. So whatever feed you're picking up at the moment to get the Luke Cage episode, our main show, Defenders TV Podcast, has every episode that we've released so far of all of the series that we've been covering, and each individual recap is going on each individual feed. But all of our individual feeds will also have the Defenders, as it is a combined show with each of the 4 characters from the Netflix series so far: Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. You can subscribe to the podcast, obviously, over through iTunes by going through defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or finding us on any good or evil podcast catcher by searching Defenders TV Podcast, and you can pick up any of our feeds there.
And of course, you can join in with ourselves and the Defenders community through our Facebook group. Just go to facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. And of course, we're over on Twitter as well. Just search for @DefendersCast. Join in with us with the discussions on all things to do with Marvel, the Defenders, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and Luke Cage, of course, that we're going over his first season in this podcast. And of course, if you want to provide any feedback to us, comment on any of the shows, comment on the podcast, you can just send your feedback through feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com, or go to the website at defenderstvpodcast.com, and you can leave a voicemail of up to 90 seconds with your thoughts or comments on all things Marvel Netflix.
Yes. So, guys, let's jump head first into Luke Cage.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say jump into the boxing ring, but even that might hurt, and especially when you're going against the man with the unbreakable skin. So, I kind of, for the listeners here, what we're going to do is quickly talk about the showrunner, the directors, the kind of the guys who brought this all together. We're going to give a quick season synopsis of what everything kind of happened. We'll discuss some of those points. We'll discuss the main themes of what we liked and didn't like across this season. And then topping it all off at where our characters are at the end. Basically, where is Luke? Where are the supporting characters as we come into August 18th and they all show back up on our screens?
Mm-hmm.
So this was an interesting series, guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This was so different from what we had previously gotten with the Marvel Netflix shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Luke Cage was another backdoor pilot, similar to what we talked about with the Daredevil show, where it was heavily focused on Punisher. He actually appeared in Jessica Jones and had quite a significant role throughout Jessica Jones, and then got his own show afterwards. But what's fascinating about this, I don't think we can start talking about the show at all without talking about the showrunner. More than any of the other showrunners, Cheo Hodari Coker, who ran Luke Cage, really put his stamp on this show and made this show completely his own. He comes from a music background. He's a music journalist who'd done Southland, the TV show. He'd done a bit of that before. This was his own show, and it really felt like this was a show defined by its music and by its situation in Harlem.
Absolutely. He really did add some amazing music to the shows that resonated with the themes and with the place of Luke Cage and in Harlem.
Absolutely. Everything from choosing the titles of each episode from Gangstar songs that were all out through the 90s. Everything from that to a moment with having artists standing on stage singing songs in the Central Club location throughout Luke Cage. It just seemed infused by music, and that's what a lot of people say Harlem is like. It's just a place infused with music. So absolutely the right person to run the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more that this whole show has been so musically influenced to the point where we actually have, for example, Method Man turning up in an episode and having the banter with Luke in a coffee, not even a coffee shop, I believe it was Delicatessen at the time.
Just a normal bodega, normal
corner shop.
Shop, yeah. I love that moment because it's like Luke Cage fanboying with one of his favorite artists, which is a real, it's exactly what music journalists love doing. It's exactly what music fans love doing. The idea of just bumping into to your favorite artist from the 90s, and having that moment with them. That was really cool. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us overall with the season synopsis for Luke Cage?
Sure. After losing his home, his bar, finding out the truth about the death of his wife, and being mind-controlled by Kilgrave, Luke Cage moves to Harlem to work in a barbershop. He hides his powers and works hard to live a normal life. But Harlem is in a battle for control as Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes is trying to seize the borough. Stokes soon realizes that Luke is in his way of his bid to take over and uses the power and influence of his sister politician Mariah Dillard. Things go south for Cornell when he takes more than he gives, and with a word in her ear from Enforcer Shades, Mariah takes out her rage on Cottonmouth, brutally murdering him. As Luke continues to take down gun runners and drug dealers with the help of Harlem PD officer Misty Knight, a former friend of Luke's comes out from the shadows to show he's had the power in Harlem all along and is ready to take down Luke. When a battle ensues, Luke soon realizes that a bullet has been created that can cause the bulletproof hero some serious damage. Not only that, but his former friend Willis Diamondback Striker has a powerful suit that absorbs any power aimed at him. With the support of Misty Knight and Claire Temple, Luke overcomes the odds to take down the crazed Diamondback.
So probably more than any of the shows that we've talked about so far, this one probably has the most villains or villainous characters.
Just slightly.
And really central and really built up characters in this show as well, I think.
Some. And this is where I will argue with you in to a degree. We obviously had Diamondback not turning up till the second half of the show. And I do remember that we had some issues, probably issues too strong of a word, some feedback based on this character being Stryker and who he is.
He was certainly divisive, yeah, like a lot of things on this podcast. Again, I think I mentioned it on our Daredevil podcast. Having a 3-person podcast does mean that one person stands on one side and the other stand sometimes on the opposite side. So, I know that this definitely divided us, if possible, down the middle. Or into thirds. In terms of thirds, I think, is the best way. But the other characters, let's talk about the good ones, the ones that really didn't divide us to start with. So, obviously, Cornell Cottonmouth Stokes feels like he's the main bad guy to begin with. He's fantastically played by Oscar nominee Mahershala Ali. Really steps out from a role he had formerly played in House of Cards. He was a main character on that show, and then steps over into this central role for Luke Cage. Hadn't really seen him in too much before, but he really brings an intensity and a real history to the character. When we find out how soft Cornell is on the inside, when we hear that he was supposed to be a musician, he was going off to trying to get a job, trying to go off to Juilliard to learn piano, and then was pushed into this life by his aunt and has taken it on board. It's the whole reason why he has the music club, because he's trying to keep music central to his life, even though he's a brutal brutal bad guy. That's kind of the main character that we think to begin with. And then obviously Mariah Dillard is the other main villain of the show, and I'd argue that she is our villain for the show. She goes through all 13 episodes, has the big arc like Kingpin did in Daredevil, and she feels like the one that has the biggest change and has become the biggest villain by the end of the series.
And I agree. There's no argument here from my side. Black Mariah is the true villain of this. It's just not until to like the last quarter of the show that you start to feel actually who she is. It's, you kind of think that, oh, maybe she's doing this because she feels she has to. Okay, maybe she's not. She goes through that character arc, as you said, from being the councilwoman who just deals with her kind of untoward cousin to being the actual person who seizes control of the rival gangs at the end. She really is. She was a fantastic character. And the more I just kind of think back about, kind of like, I can't wait to see her maybe in Luke Cage season 2, but hopefully in Defenders, even a passing cameo, where we do know there are some gang related elements in the Defenders, so hopefully she may turn up.
I just have to see her on like TV in the background doing a speech because she's still a politician or something, you know, just to kind of reference the fact that she's still in control of Harlem.
Yeah, I mean, I think like these two characters, both Cottonmouth and Mariah, they're both fighting the influence and the strength of their mother or auntie, I think. And you really get a sense at the start anyway that it is Mariah who is doing that the best. She is trying to be a politician, do it through community, but she's having to deal with her brother who is in charge of the drugs and the guns in Harlem through his club. And gradually over the season, you know, we see a few backstories of the two of them in Harlem with their auntie. And, you know, we then start to see Mariah beginning to change. And you understand that Cottonmouth actually is in a place where he doesn't want to be. He isn't the one that's taken on the advice of his guardian, back in the day. And really wants to do the music. It's a great, thing, as you said, about him trying to maintain that through the club. And even that his uncle or his stepfather, you know, is also totally consumed by his wife here, and is killed in the end, I think, by her, or as a result of something that's happened through her really trying to influence them to be a almost a crime family, to hustle really more than anything, and it's built up over the years. But we see, you know, Mariah then eventually beginning to take on the mantle of her auntie. And that arc, I mean, Alfred Woodard does a really fantastic job with that arc, and I absolutely love it. And I do think that Diamondback is, you know, the contrast then that you get with Diamondback, who really just, he comes in all guns blazing, and there is no middle ground here. He's crazed, and he's on a mission to take down Luke Cage, and really put the final nail in his coffin. And that is just really interesting. The thing about the Diamondback story that I really like is just how he tries to impersonate Luke Cage. You know, we see the where he shoots the police officers, and then Luke is on the run. But yeah, Diamondback is slightly divisive here, I think. I mean, you know, at the time there was certainly that aspect of a series of two halves to some extent.
Yes.
You have a very much this lovely nuance of Cornell Stokes and Cottonmouth and his relationship with Mariah, and you have the barbershop with Luke Cage, and that as a central hub for the community in Harlem, and you have the relationships with Misty Knight. But it's quite nuanced, and you just hear of Diamondback within the background.
Yeah. You in fact see a lot more of Shades, his right-hand man, than you see of Diamondback throughout the show.
And with the death of Cottonmouth at the hands of Mariah, there is a kind of a change to the show. Absolutely.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to talk about that? Like, that's the shocking moment for this series. And again, as I say, the show is really based on music, and that's kind of the end of Harlem's Paradise as well. So the show does feel very different after the death of Cottonmouth.
Yeah, no, for me, this was, well, first of all, no, I don't think any of us were really expecting this. This was a complete left of field. And I remember watching it, three of us, we were one of the rare situations where we watch it together. And I remember all three of us turning to each other going, did that just happen? Like, they just killed their main bad guy. Okay, so maybe it wasn't their main bad guy, which is really interesting. And I think it basically was Cheo Coker kind of putting his, as you said, his stamp on this, but he was planting his flag, going, hey, everything you know and you think you know about this show, it's not.
Yeah.
And this is not the show you think it is. This is not the characters you think it is. This is not the main antagonist you think it is.
Absolutely, and I love the fact that he again continues to divert attention away from Mariah Dillard. Like any good politician, she's hiding the fact that she is the big villain. So when Cornell dies, everybody's focused. And I remember seeing their feedback. I remember hearing other people comment on the show, and they moved from Cornell Stokes to Diamondback and went, oh, Diamondback must be the bad guy. We talked about it a bit as well as we went through the last couple of episodes, and we were kind of moving on to, oh, well, wait till Diamondback comes in. There must be a reason why he's hidden. Maybe it's a huge famous actor that's going to be coming in the show that we don't know about. And meanwhile, Mariah is building up in the background the whole time. I loved that. I thought it was a great concept for the series. Keep her in the background, give her more and more of what she craves, which is the power, and then just bring in an enemy for Luke Cage, and you can then go and take over the city. I thought that was a lovely touch.
Yeah, it's very much hindsight is 2020. Looking back on it now, I can see clearly what they were doing, building Mariah the way she was, and building her into this villain that will go across the next season or potentially Defenders. But at the time, I know we were very much, okay, where's Diamondback? Who's he going to be? Because we had this preconceived notion of what had happened with Daredevil and Kingpin.
Yeah.
But I want to take us on a slightly different tact. I want to bring us to Miss Knight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember so much of loving this character, especially now, again, looking back on it, how that one scene where she is explaining, or with the other fellow, uniformed police officers, how hard it is to be a police officer in a world where people are superpowered now, where there is the Avengers, where you have Iron Man and Luke Cage. Like, I remember that scene. That's still such an amazing thing.
Yeah.
And I want to discuss that, but the one thing I do want to remind people is she still has both arms at the moment, which is really interesting.
They really played at that towards the end of the season. I really love the character Mr. Knight. She's a cool as hell character. But they really played with it. I think that the last 4 episodes of the show, she has some form of ailment with her arm that she's checking it. She's being told by Claire Temple if she doesn't go to the doctor soon, she may lose the arm. There's loads of different points where they're playing with the expectation of comic book fans that she's going to lose that and then become the Misty Knight we know from the comic books, which is just them having loads of fun with us, really.
Yeah, definitely. And she plays really well. And it's the same with Claire Temple with Luke, because Luke is this kind of stoic figure, really. He's very serious in many respects, but both Misty and Claire, to an extent over time, that they are the ones to kind of, pull out and lighten him a bit. I think Simone Missick, who plays Misty Knight, is fantastic, and I'm really excited to see her in the Defenders. and obviously Claire Temple is reprising her role and character in her through line between all of the different series. It focuses on Claire and Luke protecting her very much here.
Yeah, we definitely got more of Claire Temple as a character in this show. She tended to be a character that reacted to Matt Murdock in the first season. She was helping with Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in the Jessica Jones series, and in this series you tend to find out much more about her. She's going back to visit her mother to get out of Hell's Kitchen because of everything that's gone on, and then walks straight into Luke Cage's life, which is I think it's great having much more of Claire Temple. This is probably her best for me. This show is probably the best we've seen of Claire Temple of all the times we see her in all the other shows, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think with just coming back to Misty Knight, I think her being a detective in the police force in Harlem, and that role in terms of what she has to fight against and how she is investigating Luke, who really has had all this suspicion thrown on him by Diamondback in a way of trying to get the police ultimately to do his dirty work, and Misty sort of, realizing it's not that simple, and I think that's a really important kind of through line here of her as a police officer and detective in the Harlem police force, working with there's Bailey, the forensics guy.
Yeah, played by Justin Swain, who we got to interview, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Scarf, obviously, who's the double dealer as well, and her having to deal with that kind of betrayal. So I'm really looking forward to, as I say, to seeing her in The Defenders. Obviously, there are Daughters of Dragons being posited as a possibility with Colleen Wing.
And she has been confirmed for season 2 of Iron Fist, working with Colleen Wing, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Again, with Misty, I remember kind of seeing Simone Missick and having a complete man crush on this woman.
You're allowed to have a man crush on a woman.
You actually got Misty over Misty Knight, didn't you?
I did. The character Simone Missick plays in this is just fantastic. I can't give it enough. There are some points where you're a bit like, come on now, Misty, get it together. You're letting things kind of spiral out of control. But again, we're introduced to the character across 13 episodes. Cheo Croker built her in such a way, and then built her. It was a combination of both Simone Missick and obviously Cheo Croker, the writing and the actor themselves. But when she was lying in the basement of Harlem's Paradise, and you saw her losing the arm, or potentially losing the arm, and kind of having to battle that, I'm a cop, I should be out there, and then you see Claire going, sit the hell down. Like, that was the ultimate arc of when she even lets Luke go towards the end and then arrests Luke.
Yeah.
Like, you see this huge arc from going, remember in the very first or second episode, where she sleeps with Luke. And that was like, we were like, whoa, what just happened here? Like, you're cheating on Danny's woman. Well, Danny's not even in the picture yet, so I suppose it's okay. It was very interesting. Yeah. And a great character.
I do. I just love that idea that just like anybody else who meets at a bar, they end off sleeping together, and then it just happens that this is Luke Cage, and that's a really important character for the rest of Misty.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing is we do get some flashback to Luke's time in prison and his genesis into the bulletproof Man of Steel. Oh, that's not necessarily the right phrase I should be using, but the man with unbreakable skin. And there's a great little nod to the tiara and cuffs as well, which we get from this. We get introduced to Dr. Noah Bernstein, who, of course, we see making his way into Diamondback's hospital room at the end. So Diamondback, despite being beaten in the end by Luke, could be back.
Yeah,
with skin as hard as diamond as well. So this is really nice little through line. Again, with his wife as well, we see that relationship. So that was good to see that, I think, for Luke Cage, to get that perspective of him in prison, effectively sort of being trained up to be a boxer and a bruiser, and that really then influences his fighting style, and on the streets of Harlem.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with the creation of Luke Cage, without a doubt, and I love the idea of his wife's story changing the more he looked back on it and more he found out about her. The more you realise that there wasn't the connection between the two of them, that she was effectively playing him and trying to get into his life the whole time under instruction from other people. But Dr. Bernstein is a very important character. But Dr. Burstein, excuse me, is another important character, because we talked about it on our Jessica Jones podcast, that Luke Cage comes back into Harlem with the flash drive that his wife had gotten and that Jessica retrieved after the death of Kilgrave. So we do find out more about this flash drive. This was really important throughout Jessica Jones, that this information existed. So what we find is that this flash drive didn't just contain the information about how Kilgrave came to be and the experiments that were happening on kids. It also contained the information about how to help Luke Cage and how he got his powers. So we're assuming that this is where Burstein made a copy of the info from the flash drive. So we're assuming the reason that he comes in to Diamondback at the end of the series is because he has now discovered the way to recreate what's happened with Luke Cage. So Diamondback, as you say, could come back even more powerful the next time we see him, whether that be in Defenders or in Luke Cage Season 2.
I'm kind of hoping they don't use Diamondback for Luke Cage Season 2. I'm hoping we do get a secondary character with potentially some Diamondback. Maybe Diamondback comes in for one episode, knock the hell out, and then you kind of get you get Mariah and a secondary character. But it'll be interesting. Yeah. I suppose. Look, the one thing I kind of want to wrap things up in terms of moving towards where we ended the characters. And I suppose the one thing we haven't really talked about is, well, we kind of skirted around, is Luke Cage. The actual transformation the character goes through in this series, from a man down on his luck, lost his bar, lost his wife, works in Pop's barbershop, to then having to understand that he has to be the defender of Harlem. He is the man that needs to right the wrongs of Harlem, and goes through that genesis, as kind of John said. What do you guys think of, like, Mike Coulter as Luke Cage? We'd seen him in Jessica Jones. We knew the type of character and the man he would play, but we kind of got a much deeper appreciation for it now. What do you guys think? Yeah,
the show definitely added a lot more to the character of Luke Cage that we'd seen in the past. It's interesting to see him away from Jessica Jones, because in that show it was much more of how he's reacting to being in the life of Jessica Jones. This is him on his own, and we see a lot more of what Luke Cage is. I also think for the show itself, it was taking on a lot of huge themes. The idea of, we've said it on the podcast and got quite deep on it, but the idea of black culture in the US at the time, there was a lot of shootings happening, a lot of kids being shot by police officers, and you now have a black superhero who can't be hurt by bullets. They absolutely took that concept. There was definitely the Trayvon Martin incident that happened in the US. There was definitely reflected within the show, because Luke Cage is a kid a young man wearing a hooded top and getting shot at. So they definitely weren't straying away from those big ideas within this show.
Absolutely, and I think that even comes back, I think, as I said before, with Misty Knight, a black lady anchored in the police with absolutely positive and good intentions, being asked to chase down a black man who is on the run, and with a community whose outrage and voice is rising against the behaviour of the police. And I think that those two elements, in terms of seeing those both sides, as well as the community reaction, I think is massively important. And it was great that a comic book TV series, a superhero TV series, could bring these contemporary elements into it and really work it into the story.
Absolutely. And one of the other elements that they brought in the themes of the show was the nature versus nurture question. The idea of Cornell versus Mariah. Mariah was being pushed towards a life of education. Cornell wanted that life, but was being pushed towards a life of crime. even though they were both pushed in opposite directions, they effectively flip by the end of episode 7. Mariah has now become the criminal, and Cornell still just wants to be a musician, still just wants to go into the life of education, and gets killed by Mariah for pushing her too far. Then you have Luke versus Diamondback. They're supposed to be brothers. They're
Paternal brothers.
They're paternal brothers, exactly. There is the involvement of Luke's father, obviously. But yeah, going two completely opposite directions. Diamondback willing to rip apart and blow a hole in Harlem just to kill Luke Cage. Luke Cage rebuilding the city of Harlem after the attacks. You know, I did like those kind of contrasts between the characters throughout the show.
Absolutely.
That was quite cool. But let's close out the episode with where they are at the end of the season.
Yeah. So Black Mariah has seized control of Harlem. The criminal element of Harlem are under her control, while still leading that double life as Mariah Dillard, the councilwoman.
And herself and Shades are totally together, right?
Yeah, Thea Rossi as Shades. We barely touched on them, but wow. Well, enough said. Just wow.
He was great.
Yeah, and I think not only with Shades, and I remember when we were also wondering whether he had, lasers behind his eyes and so on because he was wearing the shades, that he had some kind of superpower potentially that he was trying to hide and keep under wraps. But also Eric, Mariah's PA and sort of campaign lead, where he really is absolutely loyal to her and says, I will get these things done.
Yeah,
where,
like a proper henchman.
Yeah, real henchman. I loved that little conversation that they have in her house where he says, "Well, what do you want me to do? I'll arrange it." I think it's where Mariah looks to tail Misty Knight, I think, and that whole kind of storyline.
Yeah.
So that's another little thing that she's got her support around her as she sees control, definitely.
Our titular character is now back in the Slammer at the end of this series, which is very unique.
Shocking.
Yeah.
That was shocking. He saves the city of Harlem. He's surrounded by all of the people that we've met in the city from the start of the series, and then the FBI guys, I think it is, come in and go, sorry, you broke out of prison. We need to bring you back. And the final scenes are of him driving through the city of Harlem as he's taken off back to prison again.
Yeah, which I don't think any of us would have expected. The part of this that I'm more interested in is how he gets out. How is he? That we see in the trailers for Defenders, he is stepping off a bus. We don't know if that's stepping off the bus pre or post prison. So is he broken out again? Is Misty coming kind of bring him out? We have no idea.
Well,
so it's
Claire
quite
does
interesting.
have a lawyer friend now that can help her out.
She does. So let's see where that happens.
And a billionaire friend with a law firm on retainer.
That's true. And
a woman who can fly.
And all the information that was left in Pop's barbershop that could get Luke off. That's all there. There's definitely the ability to get him out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's probably our starting point for Luke, obviously, is that he is still behind bars at the beginning of that series. So it'll be interesting to see.
And then kind of where we are with Diamondback, he's in hospital. Bernstein has, as John has already mentioned, is visiting him, and that's really it. And then we have we are given Derek, as you said, we're given understand that Bernstein has made a copy of the flash drive, the yellow flash drive that Jessica retrieved, and then that Luke brought into this series with him. And then of course we've got Misty, who's kind of there. She saved helped save the day towards the end of the episode, and she's obviously going to be in this next series with hopefully with some form of appearance. I'm hoping more than just a cameo. Hopefully she's just more kind of a bit more like Claire and Colleen. We'll get a couple of scenes, more than just one scene with her in the Defenders. Yeah, and
kind of the big thing with Misty is that she is at odds with the police force now after everything has gone on. We know we see her interviewing Jessica, so in the trailer for Defenders, so we know she is still involved in the police force. She does have an interview moment, and that's where Matt and Jessica meet. So she's definitely still involved in the police force, but she is at that point of questioning everything that's going on. The people above her are under control of many other people, so she's starting to question her need to be on the force. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a good storyline for Misty within Defenders.
Yeah. So guys, overall, I have to, from my side, I obviously want to get yours. I really enjoyed Luke Cage. There was some elements I enjoyed less, and if you want to find out what ones those are, please go back and listen to all 13 episodes of our kind of spoiler-filled recaps.
Nice promotion, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. No, overall it was good. I think potentially for me the larger thing with this show was the comment on society at that point in time, that snapshot, while still telling a Marvel Netflix universe story, and a good one at that. There was some ups and downs, but we did finally get to see, as John said, the man himself in the tiara and bracelets looking like a damn fool. There you go. So what did you guys think?
For me, this is a show about theme, without a doubt. The kind of the interesting thing, as I say, is a show run by a person who loves music so much, and it's all about theme, musical themes. But it is fascinating. There's so much stuff that's going on in the show. I think this is probably, of all of the shows, this is probably the slowest. It's the show that's more deliberately paced than any of the shows. I've heard a lot of comments from people, some of the listeners, who dropped off this series because they weren't able to. The pacing wasn't the same as other shows. We commented that it was the one show that didn't have huge cliffhangers at the end of every episode. But I really enjoyed it. Thinking back and looking back on episodes of this show, some of the characters that are in here are some of the best in the Marvel universe, and I've really enjoyed spending time with them over the series. And the music got me through so much, just wonderful moments. Jadana on stage singing "Long Live the Chief," the perfect moment to encapsulate who the character of Cottonmouth is, done through music. It's fabulous. Really enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Luke Cage. I think primarily just as you say, Derek, the themes that run through it. But I just think those contrasts and swap overs between the likes of Cornell and Mariah. I absolutely loved Cottonmouth. I loved his kind of fairly tragic story, and then obviously getting killed by his own sister. And I just think them swapping roles. I think Luke is as this stoic hero who is finding his way. He's been through a lot. And the reveal of his wife through his memories, working with Dr. Noah Bernstein. It's a real cutting moment for Luke as he, the lovey-dovey element of what he thought between him and his wife really starts to come into focus. There are a few moments, I think, for me where, I think because of just the pacing of it, to begin with, up to probably episode 8 or 9, and then just the sheer crazy chaoticness of Diamondback coming in. It felt a little jarring, that, I think, initially. Like, he was very much over the top, which felt at odds with what the show had delivered up till that point. But, I mean, still, you cannot take away just how quality this entire series was, I really enjoyed it.
So there you have it, fellow defenders. That has been our recap of season 1 of Luke Cage, and what we thought of the episode, and more where we think the characters are going to end up coming into the Defenders. Make sure you join us over at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast, and you can follow along with us as we lead into August 18th, which is the Defenders at 7 or 8 a.m. GMT. We're not quite sure yet. We'll have that very soon.
My phone is definitely telling me 8 a.m, but people keep telling me 7. I don't know why it is, but anyway.
We'll figure it out. There. Damn time zones. They're a menace. Daylight savings and all that jazz.
And don't forget, we've got one more recap episode to go. We have Iron Fist, our recap of the 13-episode series coming up. That should be out next Friday, the 11th of August, 1 week before the premiere of Defenders on Netflix. Really enjoying going back through these recaps of the series. Been really good to kind of get my head back into the position of all of these shows.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, remember, please subscribe to the podcast. You can do so over on defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes for Apple Podcasts, or you can, of course, go to any other good podcast catcher and search for Defenders TV Podcast.
Unlike my fellow defenders here on the podcast, I am not above bribery. So please, can I ask you to go spread the word, like, share, rate, review as much as you can on our podcast. Basically, the more that you kind of tell people about this, the more people learn about us. And we want to basically have an amazing Defenders discussion on the week of the 18th. So make sure that you kind of tell your friends, tell your mum. You never know, she may enjoy the Netflix show. Tell your dad, tell your sister, tell your brother. Don't tell babies, because I think that's kind of slightly too adult for that. But I don't mind brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
Hell, even tell your dogs.
Grandparents
too.
Yeah, grandparents, uncles, aunties, first cousins,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff.
We do sometimes talk a lot of shit, but at least we got to use the swear jar.
And thank you very much, fellow Defenders, and we'll speak to you on Friday when we'll be looking back at Iron Fist.
Yeah.
I can't beat that. That's just perfect. Thank you very much. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, I'm off to go and get a haircut at Pop's Barber's Shop.
Oh, Pops isn't there anymore.
No, but the barber shop is.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening in, and we will speak with you next time. Bye. Snip, snip.
What?